Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Chip Watts. I'm the principal at Midvale Elementary School.
Okay, and I'm Barbara Silver-Smith, principal at Bluff Elementary School over in the Four Corners area.
And I'm Amber Sundown Clayton, and I'm the principal at Granger Elementary in West Valley.
And I'm Debbie Koji, I'm principal at South Kearns Elementary School in the Kearns area in Granite.
So the first question that I've got is, what would the now you tell the then you as you guys entered this process of turnaround? And what advice would you have for yourself? And then we'll just kind of open that up to the space. And you guys, we don't have to go straight in order, just feel free to jump.
First thing that popped into my mind, run like that. It'll be fun. It will all work out. That's what I would tell the then me. In fact, I have a poster that says "It will all work out" in my room, and I would tell myself, it's not just going to work itself out. You've got to figure out a way to put your team together and work to make it work out. But just, the planning, the goals, the preparation, the teamwork, all of those things come together to affect huge changes in schools. And it's been cool to see that at Midvale over the last 5 years. We took a long time to come off turnaround. So I think I would tell myself to pace myself, to work together with my team, and to lean on people who have been through this process before.
I think I would tell myself, I've got a little plaque too that says we can do hard things. And it actually says you can do hard things, but the way that I look at it now is we can do hard things, and that's with my entire staff, my entire team. And I think you have to just kind of look at it and say, yeah, I know all these things that are coming at me is going to be hard, but if we do it together, then it can happen. And it literally has happened for our school because we did it together. And as far as the we itself is challenging to get to, because there's a number of things that entails with that, with your staff, with building your community, with collaborating at the district level, with parents, with all the stakeholders. There's a lot that entails with that. But if we keep an eye on the we, and not just me, or not just parents, or not just teachers, that it's we're all doing this together, that all the plans, all the things that you make really will center around that we. So that's kind of how I, look at that now, is that I didn't realize at the time it was more of, really, I'm the leader here, so what am I going to do? But it was a we that I had to change my mindset to.
Well, I'll tell you a story I've told before, because I got readjusted in the first week of turnaround. So I was a second-year principal. I got my letter. I sat in my office, humiliated, crying. What the heck was going to happen? One of the first things it said is you need to notify your school community council. You got to put this team together. I'm a parent on it. So I called my school community council president, and I brought him in. We sat down, and I was gingerly kind of trying to front load and prepare him for this. And the man stood up and cheered. He stood up and cheered because he said, finally, somebody in the state believes in our kids, cares about our kids, and they're coming to help. And it was just like, okay, I have been thinking about this the wrong way the whole time. This is not about Amber Clayton, new principal, trying to prove she can do it. It's not about the teachers at Granger Elementary. It's about the kids of Granger Elementary, their parents, their community, and their futures. So when you find yourself wanting to commiserate or feeling empty, just remember whose lives that is. I'm still getting to drive in my car back over the point to Lehigh, you know what I mean? To my middle class home, and my college educated children. My job is to make sure that I provide those same opportunities for the kids that attend my school. That's our jobs.
Wow, okay, well. I was in a different position. I wasn't at the school, and I was in a school that was not only turnaround, but was one of the lowest. So we were given a school improvement grant, and I had to build from scratch a new staff, which made the change a little bit different than the change these people have had. But turnaround for me when I left the school I was formerly in, somebody had given me a notebook that said, oh, I'm not retired. To be the change you want to see in the world. And that became my impetus. Yes, it wasn't just me, it had to be the staff. We need to be the change that we want to see. And I will tell you, it's been the most difficult teaching job I've had, but it's also been the most rewarding. So I think you have to look at it from both ends. Yes, my first thought when I heard the question was run. I'm crazy. It's retirement time now. It was the thought of taking over a school that was failing, that was in the bottom of the state, that had had a history of failing, was a little daunting. But it also has been extremely rewarding to see how much the community and how much the kids can respond, and you can't do it alone. It isn't you being it, it has to be me, because I would never have made it through my first year without my staff pulling through and saying, it's okay, we can do this, and then when they have a bad day, next person's cheering them on saying, it's okay, we can do this. We went in a little blindsided, thinking we were ready, we know how to do this, we know how to teach, and then we met the kids and went, oh, what just hit us? So I think that for me was the big piece, just, recognize it's hard work, but it's also extremely rewarding work.
I'd like to open the space for questions that you guys have specifically for your school or not what their work was.
I want to add one more thing.
Yeah.
Don't stop attending Lift. There's a correlation between the schools that continue to come to Lift and their growth and their continued growth after turnaround and those that aren't here anymore. I'm throwing it down. I think it's the truth. You might have to statistically prove it. But I will back it up because I have learned something every time I come. I'm coming until they throw me out. My team is coming. Different people on my team every time that we bring to spread what Lift is all about and help them understand how this is systemic change. So the other advice I give myself is don't give up. Keep coming to Lift.
Yeah.
So several of you mentioned like the word we, right? So how are your teams structured, both teams that you bring here and then teams back at schools?
Since I had to build a new team, I was very strategic in how I built that team. I came from a school that was very, very large and went to a school that was very, very small. So I stole teachers from my former school, knowing that if I took those teachers, if those teachers followed, that we would have a base to build from. So when people applied to move over, I strategically looked at grade levels and made sure that I had continuity for every grade level. So I had one person from every grade level from my former team. That automatically built us a shared vision, and then bringing other people on that could build into that vision was very strategic, planned out. Since that time, we've had obviously movement and things, and so now I'm pretty strategic in who I put into my transformation team. And we rotate those positions to a point. You're still a small school. When you're a small school, you can only rotate so far because you don't have very many people to rotate through. but keep building that capacity so that other people, just like Amber brings different people, she's in a very large school, I'm in a very small school. I can't rotate too much, but I do try to build capacity so that when it's their turn to take over the lead or somebody's really burned out, it's okay to pull them off for a while and let somebody else take over. So you have to be really strategic. Honestly, I believe staffing is the number one reason. That is the best way to keep a turnaround is find the right teachers. Find the right teachers and build continuity and build a team. Relationships will turn around. That's true if you've got a relationship with your kids, if you've got a relationship with your community, if you've got a relationship with your team. Without that, it's really hard to move.
Well, we had the opposite. In our second year, we were at that. Our first year of turnaround, we were 1,015 students.
And I was 300.
And I had, and like many of you are going to be in the same circumstance, you have to make it move. You have to turn the ship with the staff that's on there. Very few of us have that opportunity to start over again and rebuild a complete staff. And the first thing to me that you have to realize is that these are your people. This is your we. And you have got to build them from where they are. You got to help build their confidence. You have to help teach them what they need to know instructionally. You need to help break down those silos and teach them what collaboration and teaming is all about, because you wouldn't probably be in the circumstances you are data-wise if all those other great practices were already going on, right? That's probably one of the features, is that we're not authentically doing that collaborative work. And Emily stepped out because she's been on this journey the longest of the folks that are with me today. It's incremental. And you have to, just like you meet kids where they are, you're meeting your staff where they are, and you're incrementally moving forward.
And I think also you have to really think about and ask yourself, how can I leverage, that expertise of my teachers? How can I do that? And I think because you're in it together and you've got a room full of expertise in various areas, and you take them and utilize that to your advantage as far as who can help in what area, who can help carry out the things in these 90-day plans, who can be my cheerleader in this, who can help with the assessments, the data, the organization of that, bringing it all together. And when you do that, that also builds that collaborative ownership, and it begins to help the teachers create that buy-in. Like, I'm part of this team. Yeah, I want to be able to help, and I want to be able to. And that's what I've seen with my staff and my teachers, is that they slowly were making an effort, year by year, or day by day, week by week, every month. During our meetings that we've had, there were still complaints in there, there was still resistance in there, there was still a lot of that in there, but once you start building that, their ownership in this and utilizing their expertise, and consistently do that, and pointing that out as well, and having a celebration about that as well. You just collectively come together. It's just amazing how it has happened, how that does happen.
When we were identified for turnaround, we formed our turnaround team and formed a community and got a couple of teachers and a board member on board and started making these plans and spent, a year and a half working on implementing those plans. But when it really started to feel like a team effort was when you realized, that plan that we made in the beginning isn't working so well. We need to do something differently, and started to spend a lot of time with teachers talking about what their needs were in their classroom. Going out and being in team meetings and saying, what do you guys think? Why do our kids struggle so much with phonemic awareness? Why aren't we increasing the reading fluency? And getting their input and their feedback, and then rolling all of that into a plan, and then moving forward with that plan has made a huge difference at our schools. So involving everyone, giving everyone a voice, looking for opportunities to get feedback and input from everyone who's involved in the process has been important for Midvale in terms of building a team that could lift our school up and change outcomes for students.
I'll talk about another leadership move that we used to do the thing where the leadership team was one person per grade level. And on on our teams that were still struggling with collaboration, it was still who got the short stick was on leadership. And I noticed after the second year that we needed a coalition of the willing. And so we sent out an application process to apply to be on leadership. We used resources to reward leadership for the extra time and effort it took. And then we reviewed those and made strategic decisions and then gave those folks people that they represented in the building to collect voice from. And we moved so much faster, so much faster. We have this in our mindset, this department structure or this grade level structure. We're reinforcing the silos of old, and you've got to be able to break that mold. And what you need is people who will give you feedback, who will challenge you, who will bring back authentic voice from the field in. And when you have that as a leader, when you've got that team, like, we're known for wearing costumes to district meetings because their name is the Dream League. They named it themselves. I would rather die than show up in a costume anywhere, but you know I'm in a costume when I go, right? Because that is who they are. And we wouldn't be where we are without teacher leadership, authentic teacher leadership in that building. And we wouldn't have got it by keeping it equal, one per grade level. We got there because we empowered people who are willing to lead.
How do you celebrate success? Just give us some examples.
I need them because we are like the team it's not good enough ever. We were just talking about that today. This is not our strength, so I need ideas.
Well, we found out in our second or third year that we weren't one of the lowest preschools in the state anymore. So we had Martinellis and confetti cannons in our faculty meeting. You know, we went and bought those little plastic glasses and celebrated the fact that we weren't one of the 3 lowest schools in the state. Every step along the way, it's important to recognize the progress that you're making. Because I think people get stuck on how far you've got left to go, and they don't necessarily turn around and look at how far they've come. And it's important to do that every once in a while, more often than you think. You know, we keep a list of all of our teachers' favorite drinks and candy, and when somebody does something cool, one of us runs to Maverick and picks it up. Or if you're really prepared and ahead of the game, you can keep a cabinet full of stuff. Sarah does that, I don't. And you recognize them. Hey, you know, that was a great comment you made in IPLC meeting today. Thanks for willing to take a risk and go out on a limb. Or, you know, support this school initiative or whatever. Or, geez, look at your mid-year Acadience data. Your class has made some phenomenal progress. I know things have been really hard. Here's a Diet Coke and a Hershey bar. You know? Even when I brought people into my office to have conversations that are more difficult, not of a celebratory nature, you know, you've got their favorite drink sitting there on the table. It helps to feel. I think it helps them to feel humanized and appreciated, and just appreciating everyone's effort through the struggle is important. So, you know, we look for opportunities to do fun things, to recognize teachers, to just celebrate wherever we can along the way. And that doesn't mean that you don't acknowledge at the same time the weight of the work and the distance that you have to cover and the things that still need to be done. But I don't know, you can never have too much fun as far as I'm concerned.
That's right. You know, and I think celebration is huge because in our school, we do the same thing with students. You know, celebration is a huge part of all that we do on a daily basis. It can deal with attendance, it can deal with just specifically their behavior, if they were a good hero, we have hero tickets we give out, or you know, anything that, where they've made progress, teachers give out certificates and so forth. So, you know, you can kind of, and the students thrive on that, and it seems like it's a motivation for them, so you can just kind of relate that back to the adults. It's the same way, you know, they thrive on positive feedback, on celebration, on if you're going to give them a certificate or a treat or whatever. Unfortunately, in Bluff, we don't have a Maverick, right? So you just have to really get creative and do a variety of ways. There's one thing that we do with students, if we've created a postcard, and teachers jot down just some positive notes for students, and they give it to the secretary, and the secretary puts a label on it and mails it off to the parents. And so we've started doing that with our staff, is I would write a little note for them. I'd either put in their teacher box, or maybe I could just even, you know, have my secretary mail that off to their home as well. Those are some things, or I leave a little note on their desk for them first thing in the morning, or I either email them specifically. So there's just a variety of ways I think that you've got to get creative and do all these things, because it's needed. It's needed on a daily basis for them.
We came up with a chant. So after our first year being out of turnaround, we came up with a chant that we said at the end of the day about, I don't know, what, you know, Southbridge chocolates are the best. We don't.
We can prove
We
it
can
with
prove,
the
yeah,
test.
we can prove it with the test. From an F up to a C, this is when we're doing grading, from an F up to a C, but an A we want to be. By doing that, it didn't cost me anything, right? But by doing that, not only do the kids hear how much the improvement was, but teachers hear it every day. So I only had one teacher who hated doing that, but everybody else, the kids would scream it at the end of the day, and you could hear them say, "We want to hear you in the office." You only ever heard it in kindergarten because they were Russell Hall, but it's not only a positive for the kids, right? You're reinforcing to the teachers every single day that, you know, you've made this great growth. And it didn't cost anything, so, you know, and it's not like I'm singling out one person, it's every person in the building. My social workers, my STS, my technology people, it's everyone, and they hear that every single day. And then we had the Dream Team kids, our 6th grade leadership kids, come down and do it over the microphone or something on the microphone. But they'd have to practice because they couldn't stay together. But we practiced with them till they could do it over the microphone. Doesn't cost a thing, right? But the kids bought into it, and the teachers heard it every night. And that's what you want. You want something to keep it always on the forefront, that, oh my gosh, look at the growth you've made in 1 year. We can keep it going. Look at the growth you've made. Let's keep it going. Look at how well you're doing. Let's keep it going. So, free, doesn't cost anything.
Just wondering, oh, go ahead.
One more thing that I was gonna add, sorry. Celebrating successes on social media to involve your community and your parents, and just put news out there about great things that are happening at your school. You know, we put up as many pictures and posts as we can. You know, Read Across America Day. We announced our Teacher of the Year. Real Salt Lake came out to celebrate our growth. You know, 5th graders reading to kindergartners, kids playing together well on the playground, whatever it is, you can put those positive messages out on social media, and people grab hold of that and comment, and I think it helps the community feel more involved with what's happening inside the school.
Just wondering, to everyone really, once you kind of learned that you were in the turnaround process and you organized your teams, how did you prioritize what the focus was going to be? Because I would imagine it can, you know, it's like, we could focus on everything, but how did you prioritize and decide these are the things that we're going to concentrate on moving forward?
As far as at our school, we did that with the help of the consultants that came in. The consultants were able to do use a tool to help gather data to see where we're at.
Like from the data from the teachers or students?
Yeah, just school-wide, as far as dealing with instruction, dealing with parent involvement, dealing with the culture of the school. And so they came in and just did kind of a long survey and assessment. You gather all that data, and then they share that with us as a whole staff. And from there, then we determine as a staff what are some of the areas we're going to focus on. And of course, they gave recommendations. But what I liked about that process was the consultants we worked with, they didn't really come in and say, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to focus on. So, and then after that, we determined, and then from there, we made plans and our goals and plans and put action steps into place concerning the top 3 things we wanted to focus on.
I think we took a different approach. Being a very, very large school, my philosophy has always been much more systemic. You know, we had to get, my goal has always been, and now I can't get them to move me, but because now I'm getting ready for my 8th year at Granger, but my design was always that we would build healthy systems that were not people dependent. Not principal dependent, not a PLC leader dependent, not a single coach dependent, that with a huge staff, you're going to have turnover every year because people have babies and get married and move away. And so we couldn't be a tight-knit community. We needed to be a clear systems community that was flexible enough to invite people in, and flexible enough that the strengths that they brought with them could be integrated to help us grow even further. So for us, we started with our most unhealthy systems, which were really around our SST process and our special ed process. Our most vulnerable children in the building were the poorest served in the building, and so that was the first step. Then we really turned our attention to PBIS. Then we kind of turned our attention to, and you're working on all these things together, but if you ask like, where were the big gains? Then it was really moving into instruction, and at the time we weren't standards-based instructing, we were just teaching whatever we wanted, and we needed to work on that. And then we need to really build PLC processes. You've got a cube on your table. You see that cube? That cube needs to be on your desk at home. That cube needs to be, steal every one you get. That cube needs to be on your desk at work. You need to be handing that cube to people that you care about in leadership. That cube will also come in handy. The kid that wants to throw everything at you, hand them the cube because it's much softer than other things on those days too. We had the advantage of the opportunity to have the state superintendent come visit us in December as well. And the lens that we gave her on improvements at Granger were really through the cube. So I think Lisa's going to get you guys a copy of this. This is upside down, but this is the shifts that were made at Granger through turnaround based on the cube. And you're kind of working on each domain at once, but you're moving what needs to change, what's not tenable anymore that needs to be improved. Whatever's most on fire, you got to do that, and then you got to prioritize and keep going. But you're really building systems to last. Doesn't do us any good to make a huge bump, get out of turnaround, and then fall right back down.
I think this is, Brandon, one of the things that I have the hardest time with as a turnaround principal at the beginning, because there are so many possible things that you can focus on, and in a large district with a lot of people in supervisory positions, you got a lot of people telling you, well, you know, I think you should do this, I think you should do that. I mean, I remember the meeting we had with our teachers, and we partnered up with UEPC, and we talked to our teachers about possible things that we could focus on as a school. You know, and we had posters up, and we gave everybody 3 dots to vote with. Most of the teachers went to behavior, student behavior, and put all 3 dots on it. So, you know, that was identified as a priority, but from there, what comes next? A lot of people, and I was a brand new principal coming from a middle school. It was my first elementary school experience, my first principalship. Anybody that came to me and said, Chip, I think you should do this, I'd say, okay. I think that sounds like a great idea. I mean, you know more than I do, right? And so I'd start doing it, and then somebody come up with that, I think you should do that. Okay. Great, let's do that too. And so we started doing all these things, and none of them worked, and we'd spread ourselves so thin, and we're trying to, you know, focus on so many different strategies or tools or programs or whatever. None of it was working. So when it really clicked for us is when we said, whoa, we're trying to do too many things and none of them are working well. We're trying to do everything and doing nothing, accomplishing nothing. We need to focus on one thing, two things, and we really put the brakes on the whole process in the middle of the year one year and said, nope, we gotta change directions. We're going away from increasing the amount of student talk in the classroom towards phonemic awareness and phonics and reading instruction. And that's when we really started to see growth happen in our schools, when I realized, whoa, everybody who walks through the door is more than willing to tell me how to fix my school, but I'm the one that's got to figure out what to do. And I've got to figure out a way to tell people, thanks, but no thanks, we're not going to do that, we're doing this.
Thanks, Chip.
I think we started in a different spot totally, just because of the whole new staff. So my first thought was, I've got to get the staff all on the same page before I can do anything. And we knew continuity with curriculum was going to be critical, because the year before we came, teachers had just done their own curriculum, so there was no continuity. So we knew we needed to get some continuity with curriculum, and we really went in thinking we were prepared. I took about 2/3 of my staff to teaching and learning with poverty in mind, because we knew that we were changing the demographics and the socioeconomic status of what we were used to working with. And we thought, oh, we got this, we got that conference feeling so pumped that we were going to be so ready. And day one, every teacher was in the faculty room at the end of the day in tears and saying, why did I do this? What was this? And I walked in and went, except for the 3 teachers who had been at that school the year before. And they said to us, why are you upset? It's the best day we've had yet. And we were like, and at that point we realized that the focus had to be back to the kids. We needed to get to know who our kids were and what their needs were totally differently. So since then, we've kind of really shifted. Yes, academics are always critical, always going to be your top priority. But if you really trust your teachers and you trust that you've set up the expectations and they know how to look at data and they know how, the bigger piece is, how do they relate to the kids? How do they relate to the kids? I mean, I remember the first time I always got to a kid and said, hey, how are you today? And they're like, don't touch me. And I was like, what's going on here? Different culture, totally different culture. And I learned very quickly that touch with these kids was not okay. Very gang mentality, you don't touch. You know, it could be your butt coming after you, so you don't touch. And I knew I'd made a breakthrough about middle of the year when I could finally come up to somebody and say, how's your day going? And touch their shoulder softly or touch their arm. We made a breakthrough. Wasn't perfect. And what we've learned from that point on was it's not just the poverty for us in our school, it was very much the trauma-informed information that needed to come, that we needed to switch our focus from everything can't be academic, we really need to look at the mental health of our kids. And we needed mental health support so badly that first, I needed mental health support. Literally went to the district one day and said, I can't do this. And I was just sobbing, I cried a lot, I was excited. Sobbing, my poor social worker went with me and we had a meeting with all of these district departments and they were like, oh my gosh, I mean, because I was a pretty seasoned principal at that point, and it was like, you have no idea what we were dealing with. And so switching, I can't say that we got a ton of support other than they now recognized what we needed. But switching our mindset to, academics are super important, and my teachers, I have to trust that you know how to do that. And I know we can always get better at that, but at least we're all on the same page. But before we can teach those kids, I've got to get their brains engaged to school. Literally change that philosophy, that mindset, and we really switched from a lot of, we were very PBIS. PBIS the first year, that was a district thing, right? Everybody, PBIS. Well, I found out that our kids didn't understand empathy for anybody, and that I had to switch. So we've kind of morphed over the years from, yes, we still have PBIS, but we've really morphed into a lot more restorative practices, because that restorative practice piece is teaching our kids to see beyond themselves, which has changed the culture of the school. So now the new push is more of the trauma-informed. How do I deal with the trauma-informed while still keeping movement on academics? So it really does, it keeps going back to, if I don't have that relationship with the kids, if I don't understand my kids, it doesn't matter how great I can teach, it doesn't matter how wonderful my lesson is, that kid is not engaged with me because his mind is worried about whether uncle's going to prison. I mean, it's just the things I had this week. Whether uncle is going to prison tomorrow, whether grandma is in the hospital and I don't have anybody else at home who's gonna take me. I mean, those are the pieces in their lives that are huge. And if I can't help them learn to cope with that, it doesn't matter how much I try to tell them I need to teach you how to read. And so you kind of really have to watch those two, what you find in, at least at our school. You know, that's where we were at our school. We have to figure out that piece. So even though we learned an awful lot at the poverty conference, and we've revisited, we said we need to go back now that we knew our kids. So you guys all talked about already having your teachers. You didn't get to select your teachers. You came in at least knowing your kids somewhat. We didn't know our kids. So we came in with unreal expectations of what we thought the kids would be. So even though we kind of had a staff that was, part of our staff that was at least consistent, we didn't know our kids. And so we built plans without knowing kids. And I will tell you, you can look at test data all you want. It's not real till you get the kid with it. So when these consulting companies came in and had us look at data, we kept saying, okay, we'll kind of, we kind of see the data, but man, as soon as we met the kids, it was like, and that data is way skewed because we don't know the kids. So once we got to know the kids, it totally changes where you go, because the data doesn't tell you everything. You need to know the kids behind the data, because you don't know the reasons that they're in dibbles. You don't know you don't know, is it a DLL problem? Is it that nobody's at home to help them at night? Is this, what, so you need to dig down a lot deeper than that. So it really does have to change once you get all the pieces together. But I think relationships with kids, after that you can figure out your curriculum. We're good at that. We're good at that piece. We're not perfect, but we're good at that piece.
And I would have to appreciate what Debbie's saying, because, we feel like we got to the point where we're a data-driven school, where we're more intentional about our data, and we analyze our data, we look at our data, we put a face with that specific data, and so we can have, our goals can be set by looking at those kids and knowing where the kids are and where they come from and knowing about them. But we didn't get there just by doing that. We got there by making home visits, and that's been a huge thing at our school, is making home visits. The last couple of years, our home visits have continually increased. And last year, we did about 100%, close to 100% home visits of all of our students. And granted, we're a small school, and this year we started with 90 kids, and we're at 80 kids right now, 80 students. However, that's still a lot to be able to make a home visit with every single student. And my teachers, as they have done that, they have gotten to know exactly where the students are coming from, their home life, their situation, their parents, who they're living with, and they're making a better connection with them. And it's just awesome to see that when the students come into the classrooms now, how the teachers greet them, how they treat them, and how they, if there's an issue with them, there's certain steps that they take now, whereas, basically send them out of the classroom or send them to the office or send them to someone else that can deal with them, because, I don't want to. But now they take those students themselves and go through a process and helping them, figuring out exactly what the problem is. So it just has been awesome to see that with my staff, the change that has made within, the transformation that has come over my staff, because they have now made that connection with the students. And it also has reflected in their instruction as well, their daily instruction. And so we've become a data-driven school, and that's been awesome, but that's due to some work, some heavy work that we had to do to get to that point.
I don't know your backgrounds. I was a free and reduced lunch kid, and I have high ACE factors. That is my upbringing. So the place where I work is very much like the place that I grew up. So it does not seem as foreign to me as it does some staff. And I think one of the things we have to remind, if we are equity-minded, we have to be really careful that we can have a subtle culture of low expectations and over-empathy for situations. So all these things are really critically important, but what I've watched some teachers go off the deep end almost, and it's okay if you don't do anything today. Go play with that little sensitive box and calm yourself down. And it's okay for 8 hours to do that, right? We have to be really careful. Like, all of these topics are extremely important and they are absolutely necessary, but by golly, so is the fact that that kid reads on grade level. So is the fact that they know their multiplications and times tables and have a toolkit of strategies to do their math, because they may learn to self-soothe and calm themselves down, but they're not going to graduate high school. So we have to do both equally. That is my appeal to you. And if you are not a free and reduced lunch leader, and you are not a high ACE factor leader, then you have to work even harder to be aware of the implicit bias in staff behavior, even if it's well-intentioned. Does that make sense? And I think one of the things that happens is we, my life now doesn't look like my life as my childhood, and even I get persuaded sometimes to fall into the same pit of low expectations. We have to constantly, don't we constantly remind ourselves that we don't feel sorry for our kids. Oh, heck no. We're going to get you fixed and get you back to class, because that's where you need to be. And then we're going to build you up and make you feel great, because look what you accomplished. And maybe no one in your life was able to self-soothe themselves and get it turned around, but by golly, you can, and that's going to make all the difference in your life. So I concur with everything they've said. Just don't let that become what we do because it makes us feel good. Keep the culture of high expectations at the same time.